Danny Pigeon here, Marketing Assistant at Saratoga Horseworks. Our success relies on our ability to compete with larger manufacturers, both foreign and domestic. The key to our success is our ability to run as efficiently as possible. How do we do it? Let's go back and talk to our operations manager, Lisa, and see one of the many technological advances that keep us running like a well-oiled machine. Hi Lisa, I was just wondering how our change in cutting techniques has increased our efficiency.
That's a great question, Danny. In 2007, we switched from traditional cutting to using an Eastman EC3 computer-guided cutting machine. What that allows us to do is digital pattern and digital marker making to utilize more of the material than with traditional cutting. We went from 30 cubic yards of waste a month to 16.
Wow, that's a huge difference. So how exactly does the cutting machine cut so much more efficiently than the traditional method?
Well, here, let me show you. This is a marker for a dive wing that would be cut the traditional method, and it has an efficiency rate of 56%. If we switch over to this marker, being cut on the EC3, its efficiency increases to 85%, and that's because we're able to place all of these smaller components into what would have been waste in the traditional marker.
Thanks, Lisa. Now let's head back to the cutting machine and talk with Mike Libertucci. Mike, I was just discussing with Lisa how efficient our new cutting machine has made us. What are your thoughts?
Well, Lisa's right. Computer-guided cutting is generally more efficient than traditional cutting. But we do traditional cutting here. It spreads fabric up to 8 inches deep on this big table, and then cuts them with this Eastman power knife. Now the spreading alone can take days, and the cutting another day or more. So if our customer's got an expectation for a delivery date, we might not be able to meet it with the protracted time it takes to spread and cut the goods. Also, when the goods are finally cut, the sewing machine operators are buried under a mountain of fabric that they need to sew, which can be very demoralizing. So not only does the traditional cutting slow in the cutting room, it can be slow on the sewing floor too. Okay. So we've talked about traditional cutting. Now let's talk about cutting with the EC3. This single ply cutter can cut at 30 centimeters a second and with an accuracy of 1 millimeter, much faster and much more accurate than a human cutter could possibly hope to achieve. Since we're cutting single ply, the machine's able to drop a knife into what would normally be waste and cut good parts from that. And as a single ply cutter, it sends a steady stream of work out to the next operation or to the sewing floor. So the sewers aren't being overwhelmed by carriages of work coming off of a traditional cutting table. When we first bought the machine, we had 2 cutters working on an average 90 hours a week. The same week we installed this machine, one of our cutters went out for a prolonged leave, so we only had 1 guy available. We only ran the machine for 25 hours, and we were well ahead of the sewing floor.
Wow, that's a huge difference. What else can this machine do?
Well, let me show you what it can do. cut part. We've got its date code. It cut a hole inside the fabric, which as a traditional cutter would have a secondary operation at a die cutting machine. Plus, we cut one of these pieces out of the waste, and now, instead of throwing this in the dumpster, we've got these available the next time a customer places an order for them.